Before anything else changes in your life, there is one moment that changes you. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not celebrated by others. It is the quiet moment when you realize you have been living for everyone except yourself. The day you choose yourself is not a rebellion against the world. It is a return to your own center. And once you return, nothing remains the same. For a long time, many people believe strength means endurance. They believe strength means tolerating what hurts, staying silent when something feels wrong, continuing even when the soul is tired. They confuse patience with self-erasure. They confuse discipline with self-neglect. But there is a difference between enduring hardship for growth and abandoning yourself for approval. One builds you. The other slowly dissolves you. The body may continue to move, but the spirit begins to withdraw. You show up physically, but inwardly you are no longer fully present. This is the hidden cost of self-abandonment. It does not arrive as a crisis. It arrives as numbness, as quiet resentment, as a life that feels heavy even when nothing is technically wrong. Self-abandonment often begins with good intentions. You want to be kind, you want to be flexible, you want to be understanding. So you say yes when your inner voice says no. You stay when your intuition says it is time to leave. You accept treatment that slowly trains you to believe you are asking for too much when you ask for respect. Over time, this becomes a habit, not a single decision, but a pattern of small betrayals against yourself. Each one seems small, but together they form a life that is not aligned with who you truly are. Moldens. In the Shaolin tradition, we train to observe the gap between impulse and action. That gap is where your true power lives. When you abandon yourself, that gap disappears. You react automatically. You comply automatically. You suppress automatically. You do not choose. You drift, and drifting feels safe because it avoids conflict. But avoiding conflict with others often creates war within yourself. The body carries tension. The mind carries fatigue. The heart carries disappointment that has nowhere to go. The day you stop abandoning yourself, you do not suddenly become aggressive. You become clear. Clarity is calm. Clarity is quiet, but clarity is firm. It is the moment you decide that your inner voice is not an inconvenience. It is a compass. You begin to listen again, not to every fear, not to every emotion, but to the deeper signal beneath them. The signal that says, this is not aligned. This is not respectful. This is not your path. For many people, this voice has been ignored for so long that it feels unfamiliar. But it has never left you. It has only been waiting. When you choose yourself, you are not choosing ego. You are choosing responsibility. Responsibility for your energy. Responsibility for your time. Responsibility for the kind of life you are building with your daily choices. In Shaolin training, we do not leave discipline to chance. We decide who we are training to become. Your life works the same way. If you do not choose yourself consciously, you will be chosen by circumstances, by other people's expectations, by old habits, by fear. Choosing yourself means you stop letting the outside world decide your inside state. Many people fear that choosing themselves will make them alone. But what truly creates loneliness is living disconnected from your own values. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone if you are not being true to yourself. When you stop abandoning yourself, something interesting happens. You may lose certain connections, but you gain alignment. And alignment attracts relationships that are built on respect, not convenience, on truth, not tolerance. This is not a loss. This is a correction. Self-respect is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It is expressed in what you allow, what you walk away from, and what you no longer explain. When you stop abandoning yourself, you no longer need to convince others of your worth. You begin to live as if your worth is already established. This changes your posture. This changes your voice. So, this changes the way you enter a room. not because you are trying to dominate, but because you are no longer shrinking. Means in Shaolin philosophy, we train the body to obey the mind and the mind to obey principle. When you abandon yourself, you reverse this order. You let fear command your mind. You let pressure command your body. You let comfort command your future. Choosing yourself restores the proper hierarchy. Principle first, then mind, then body. You move with direction, not reaction. You act with intention, not habit. From this place of self-mastery, something else begins to happen naturally. You no longer feel the need to over-explain yourself. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your time, your energy, and your peace. When you choose yourself, boundaries are no longer something you struggle to create. They become something that emerges from clarity. You do not build them out of anger. You build them out of respect. Respect for your limits. Respect for your direction. Respect for the life you are training to live. Many people believe boundaries are aggressive. They believe saying no makes them difficult. But the truth is, boundaries are not acts of conflict. They are acts of alignment. They simply state what is compatible with your growth and what is not. When you lack boundaries, you are not being kind. You are being available to be drained. You are being available to be distracted. You are being available to be pulled away from your own path. Over time, this creates frustration, not peace, because your energy is being spent on what does not serve your evolution. Mao's in disciplined training, we understand that not every movement is allowed. There is a correct form. There is a correct range. There is a correct limit. If you exceed the limit, you injure yourself. Life is no different. When you allow unlimited access to your time, your emotions, and your attention, you injure your future. You may not feel it immediately, but slowly you become tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. That is not physical exhaustion. That is boundary exhaustion. That is the fatigue of saying yes to what your spirit has already rejected. Jean piped to yourself, your knower frums plurring ton session. When you choose yourself, your no becomes clean. It is not emotional. It is not defensive. It is not filled with stories. It is simple. It is calm. It is final. You do not owe everyone an explanation for your standards. Your standards are not negotiable because they are not random. They are built from your values. And values are the structure of your life. If your structure is weak, everything collapses under pressure. Boundaries are what keep that structure strong. Bend. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will often resist when you begin to set them. They may call you changed. They may call you selfish. They may try to make you feel guilty for no longer being as available, as flexible, as convenient. This is not a sign you are doing something wrong. This is a sign you are no longer participating in a dynamic that required you to abandon yourself. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your alignment is, when you choose yourself, you stop negotiating with what drains you. You stop trying to manage other people's emotions at the cost of your own stability. You stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours to begin with. This is not coldness. This is clarity. Coldness is closing your heart. Clarity is opening your eyes. You can be compassionate and still have limits. You can be kind and still be firm. In fact, true kindness requires boundaries. Without them, kindness becomes self-erasure. A disciplined mind understands that every yes has a cost. Every commitment takes time. Every emotional investment takes energy. When you are unconscious of these costs, you spend without checking your balance. Eventually, you are depleted. Choosing yourself means you begin to spend intentionally. You ask, does this support the person I am becoming? Does this move me closer to my purpose or further from it? If it does not align, you do not need to attack it. You simply step away. And Bendy, as your boundaries become stronger, your life becomes quieter, not empty, quitter, less drama, less unnecessary conflict, less emotional noise. You are no longer pulled into every situation that demands your attention. You become selective. Selection is power. Selection is focus. Focus is how you build a life with direction instead of reaction. And boundaries also teach others how to treat you, not through words, but through consistency. When your no means no, people learn your standards. When your yes is rare and intentional, people value your presence more. When you stop rescuing, fixing, and overgiving, people either rise to meet you in responsibility or they fall away. Both outcomes serve your growth. Most importantly, boundaries rebuild your relationship with yourself. Every time you honor a limit, you send a message inward. You say, I am worth protecting. I am worth listening to. I am worth prioritizing. Over time, this creates self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence that cannot be taken from you by anyone's opinion. From this clarity, a deeper shift begins to take place. You stop looking outward for permission to be who you are. You stop waiting for approval before you take responsibility for your own direction. When you choose yourself, you activate something that has always been within you, but may have been dormant for years. Inner authority. This is the point where your life is no longer driven by reactions to circumstances, but by decisions rooted in principle. Temkum biziron. For many people, their sense of self has been shaped by other people's expectations. Family, society, past failures, past praise. Slowly, without noticing, they hand over the steering wheel. They begin to ask, what will they think, instead of, what do I know to be right? This weakens the connection to their own judgment. Over time, doubt becomes louder than intuition. Fear becomes louder than truth. Choosing yourself reverses this pattern. You take the authority of your life back into your own hands. Lend inner authority does not mean you reject all guidance. It means you filter guidance through your values. Your values. You listen, but you decide. You consider, but you command. This is the difference between being influenced and being controlled. A disciplined person can learn from anyone without being owned by anyone. This requires strength of identity, strength of principle. When you do not know your principles, you are easily swayed. When you know them, you are steady even when others disagree. In Shaolin training, the student does not move randomly. Every movement is intentional. Every stance is grounded. This is how authority is built in the body. The same is true in life. Authority is built through small, consistent acts of self-leadership. You say you will wake up early, and you do. You say you will train, and you train. You say you will walk away from what drains you, and you walk away. These are not dramatic moments, but they are powerful. Each one is a vote for your reliability. Over time, you become someone you can trust. And when you trust yourself, your voice becomes stronger. Many people confuse confidence with loudness. But true authority is quiet. It does not need to prove. It does not need to dominate. It is felt through presence, through certainty, through the absence of hesitation. When you are aligned with your principles, your decisions carry weight, even when you say little. People sense when you are not available for manipulation, not because you are aggressive, but because you are grounded. And choosing yourself also means you stop letting your emotions drive your decisions. Emotions are information. They are not commanders. Inner authority means your principles lead, your mind interprets, and your emotions follow. When this order is reversed, life becomes unstable. You react when you should reflect. You escape when you should endure. You chase when you should stand still. Reclaiming inner authority restores this order. You feel, but you are not ruled by what you feel. You think, but you are not trapped by overthinking. You decide and then you commit. This is how fear begins to lose its power. Fear thrives in uncertainty and self-doubt. When you know who you are and what you stand for, fear becomes information, not a barrier. It tells you where growth is required, not where you must retreat. Inner authority does not remove fear. It places fear in its proper position, behind your purpose, not in front of it. Being as you live from this place, your life begins to simplify. You waste less energy on second guessing. You waste less energy on seeking validation. You waste less energy on explaining yourself. Your decisions become cleaner. Your standards become firmer. Your direction becomes harder to shake. This is why choosing yourself changes everything. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You become the one who steers, quietly, consistently, with discipline, with principle, with authority that comes not from control over others, but from mastery over yourself. And as this inner authority strengthens, something else becomes impossible to ignore. You can no longer pretend that old patterns are harmless. You begin to see clearly the habits, environments, and relationships that were built for survival, not for growth. Choosing yourself means you stop confusing familiarity with safety. Many people stay loyal to patterns that hurt them simply because those patterns are known. Known pain feels predictable. Growth feels uncertain. But uncertainty is the price of evolution. Weak patterns often disguise themselves as comfort. Procrastination feels like rest. Avoidance feels like peace. People-pleasing feels like kindness. Self-sabotage feels like protection from disappointment. By these yours and all by for a euro comes in ocean. But these patterns do not protect your future. They protect your fear. When you choose yourself, you begin to tell the difference. You start asking, does this behavior strengthen me or weaken me? Does this environment expand me or shrink me? Does this relationship support my discipline or reward my excuses? Breaking weak patterns is not about sudden transformation. It is about consistent interruption. You catch yourself in old reactions and you pause. You choose a different response. You feel the urge to escape and you stay. You feel the urge to shrink and you stand. You feel the urge to shrink and you stand. This is training. Just like the body, the mind learns through repetition. Each time you choose the harder, more honest option, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new identity. Being. Choosing yourself also means you stop returning to what once broke you. Not because you are angry, but because you are clear. You recognize that some doors do not lead forward, even if they are familiar. Growth requires the courage to outgrow people, places, and versions of yourself that were necessary at one time but are no longer aligned with who you are becoming. This is not betrayal, this is progression. Many people mistake loyalty for staying in what damages them. But true loyalty is to your highest potential. Anything that consistently pulls you away from that is not loyalty. It is attachment. When you choose yourself, you loosen the grip of attachment. You no longer cling to what weakens you just to avoid being alone. You would rather walk alone in alignment than stay surrounded in self-betrayal. This separation can feel uncomfortable. There may be moments of doubt, moments where the old life calls you back. Old habits whisper. Old relationships test your resolve. This is normal. The past always resists being outgrown. But each time you refuse to return, you send a powerful message to yourself. You say, I am no longer available for what keeps me small. Over time, this becomes your new standard. Manjas. This is how identity shifts, not through words, but through exits, through what you leave behind, through what you no longer tolerate. Weak patterns lose their power not because you fight them emotionally, but because you starve them of participation. You do not feed them with attention. You do not strengthen them with excuses. You simply move forward, and as you separate from what weakens you, you create space for what strengthens you. Strong habits, strong environments, strong relationships. Strength does not enter a life that is crowded with weakness. Choosing yourself clears the space. It makes room for the version of you that is disciplined, grounded, and no longer available for cycles that once controlled your direction. And in this space you have created, something powerful becomes visible. Your life begins to respond to you differently because you are now responding to yourself differently. When you choose yourself, everything changes not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger, clearer, and more consistent. Your standards rise, your energy becomes cleaner, your focus becomes sharper. You are no longer available for excuses, not from others, and not from yourself. When you stop waiting for the perfect moment, you understand that discipline creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence. Each small decision becomes a declaration. I am in command of my direction. I do not drift. I do not delay my own life. I move with intention. This intention compounds. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes identity. And when you choose yourself, you teach people how to engage with you. Some will rise, some will fall away. This is not loss. This is alignment in action. Your life becomes less crowded and more focused, less noisy and more precise. You are no longer pulled in many directions. You walk one path with full presence. Then your inner world becomes quieter, not because there are no challenges, but because there is no longer internal resistance. You are no longer fighting your own values. You are no longer negotiating with your own potential. This creates a deep form of peace, not comfort, peace. The peace that comes from living in agreement with who you truly are. Ben, this is the true meaning of self-mastery. Not control over others, but command over your own choices. Not dominance, but discipline. Not ego, but alignment. When you choose yourself, you step into a life that is built by design, not by default. Every day becomes training. Every decision becomes a signal. Every boundary becomes a foundation. Stand firm in your direction. Train your mind. Protect your energy. Honor your values. Walk forward without apology for your growth. The world will adjust to the person who refuses to abandon themselves. May you move with clarity, live with discipline, and build a life that reflects your highest standard. Best wishes.